No cameras have ever captured his face. His name is not listed in any official biography of Ibrahim Traoré. And yet, deep within the walls of the presidential residence in Ouagadougou, a boy walks the halls who speaks words no one taught him, a 6-year-old child whom guards whisper about after hours, whom ministers lower their voices to discuss. They say he sees the future. His name is Yuri, which in the old Mossi tongue means the one who arrives with the wind. He was born during a violent thunderstorm in the north, the same night Traoré survived an ambush that should have killed him. Locals still remember the clouds forming in the shape of a hawk as lightning struck the base of a foreign communication tower. That night, the child let out his first cry. At the exact minute the last French outpost in the region fell, his mother died shortly after birth. The midwife disappeared 2 days later. For years, Traoré never spoke of the child. The boy was raised in silence by a rotating circle of protectors, former soldiers, herbalists, griots sworn to secrecy. They say he never played with toys. He drew maps instead, maps of places he had never visited, but that somehow became critical in national security meetings months later. At age 4, he stood before a sand table used for military simulation and pointed to a region in the southeast. "There," he said, "that's where the traitor is hiding." Weeks later, a high-ranking officer was arrested on suspicion of espionage in the exact village the boy had named. The boy is never forced to speak, but when he does, his voice takes on a cadence unlike his usual tone. It's deeper, slower, almost ancient. Some say he's channeling, others say he's simply gifted, but a few, the ones closest to the president, have started to wonder if this is something far more dangerous and more powerful. At the start of 2025, Traoré was scheduled to attend a BRICS security summit in China. Weeks of planning had gone into the logistics. Russian advisors, Venezuelan envoys, and Iranian defense attachés were already en route. But 2 nights before departure, the child walked into the war room and placed his small hand on the president's shoulder. "Don't go," he whispered. "They won't let you come back." The trip was canceled, no explanation given. Days later, intelligence services intercepted a plot involving a coordinated air sabotage scheme targeting African heads of state en route to the summit. No one asked the boy how he knew. There's more. In April, after the mysterious arrival of North Korean commandos, the boy disappeared for 3 days. Traoré was reportedly visibly agitated. A nationwide alert was issued but not made public. When the child returned, he was barefoot and holding a feather from an eagle species not native to West Africa. "Mother says not to worry," he told the guards calmly. "She said the third ally is ready now." To this day, no one knows what third ally he meant. But 2 weeks later, a South American delegation arrived under heavy secrecy. A trilateral defense framework, never reported in the press, was signed in a closed-door midnight session. Now, within the inner circles of power in Ouagadougou, the boy is not referred to by name. They call him the Silent Oracle. When foreign delegations arrive, he is kept out of view. But once, during a state dinner with a visiting European diplomat, the boy accidentally walked into the room. He paused, stared at the guest for a long moment, then turned to his father and said, "He's lying." The deal was off within the hour. People are beginning to talk. Some say Traoré is no longer the most powerful figure in Burkina Faso, that he now consults the child before every major decision, that the future of the nation may be shaped not just by strategy or arms, but by the visions of a boy barely old enough to write his name. They say the boy has dreams, dreams of fires rising in the north, of foreign armies turned to salt, of a day when the desert blooms without rain. They say he once asked his father, "If I tell you what comes after victory, will you still fight?" The rumors had always existed in the shadows, but when whispers of a boy who sees what hasn't happened yet reached the ears of foreign intelligence agencies, particularly within the walls of Langley, they were no longer dismissed as folklore. A child hidden from the public eye, a boy capable of predicting military plots, political betrayals, and foreign infiltration before any satellite or spy drone could, this was not something Washington could ignore. Initial reports labeled it disinformation, an African myth crafted to elevate Traoré's cult of personality. But as the reports grew more consistent, more detailed, and more unnerving, a different kind of operation began. A classified task force was assembled, buried within the Bureau of African Strategic Operations, and its mission was singular: locate, observe, and, if possible, extract the boy. Satellite scans focused on the presidential compound in Ouagadougou, heat-mapping movement patterns, analyzing body sizes, and matching voice prints from intercepted audio logs. In early May, a fuzzy infrared capture caught a small figure standing alone on the roof of the palace during a midnight sandstorm. He stood motionless, facing east. Moments later, a military convoy 300 kilometers away was ambushed, exactly as predicted in a secret internal memo, attributed to the boy 2 days prior. That was when the CIA's tone changed from skepticism to urgency. In Paris, similar concerns had begun circulating within the DGSE. French analysts had flagged patterns, canceled summits without explanation, high-level purges within Traoré's inner circle, seemingly coordinated by someone outside the formal intelligence chain, and, most chillingly, the boy's reported comment to the president just days before the failed assassination attempt in March: "Don't drink anything today." That same afternoon, a poison beverage meant for Traoré was intercepted by his personal guard. The source? A diplomat from a Western-aligned country whose name was never released. And yet, the boy had known. By June, a covert listening device disguised as a gift from a foreign embassy was discovered inside a ceremonial drum within the palace nursery. No one had played that drum in weeks. No one but the boy. And it was the boy who alerted his father, saying the object smelled of fear. What terrified these agencies wasn't just that the boy might be special. It was that Traoré, a military man already known for his unpredictability and defiance, was reportedly listening to him, changing military deployments, reshuffling cabinet members, and even rewriting regional treaties based on a 6-year-old's visions. In Langley, a chilling memo circulated internally, marked red, subject codenamed Oracle. If verified, potential implications on geopolitical forecasting, proxy operations, and regional influence are catastrophic. But the memo contained something else, buried in the footnotes. It referenced a pattern of similar children reported throughout history, often dismissed as anomalies, prophets, or prodigies, whose governments had always tried to control or silence them. The footnote ended with one sentence: "This is the first case in recorded modern history where the head of state may willingly serve the child." Plans were drawn up. A psychological profiling unit was deployed to Ouagadougou under the cover of an NGO. A former Mossad agent was hired as a linguistics consultant to analyze the boy's speech patterns through distant recording. 2 double agents embedded in Burkina Faso's Ministry of Communications were tasked with getting close to the presidential household, but both vanished within a month of assignment. One left a final message, scrawled hastily on the back of a customs form, smuggled out by a courier. "The boy knew me. He smiled before I ever said my name." Inside the presidential compound, Ibrahim Traoré grew quieter, more guarded. At night, he would walk alone to the edge of the garden where Yuri often sat, gazing silently at the moon. "What did you see today?" he would ask. And sometimes the boy would answer in riddles. "A man digging a grave for himself, but calling it a gift." Or, "They think lightning won't strike twice if they stand in the ashes of the first fire." Each time Traoré would nod, not because he understood fully, but because deep down he feared the day the boy would stop speaking. One morning, a senior military officer resigned without reason. Another fled to a neighboring country before dawn. The boy had said nothing aloud, but he had drawn 2 names in the sand the night before, names no one had spoken for weeks. The presidential guard now moved not only with rifles but with reverence. They didn't protect the boy out of duty. They protected him out of something closer to awe. By late July, unconfirmed reports began surfacing in African diplomatic circles that the boy had been offered asylum by a South American country with a long history of harboring controversial figures. The offer was never acknowledged publicly. And yet, one evening, as the sun set blood-red over the horizon, Yuri looked up at his father and said, "They want to take me away from you. They think I'm yours. But I belong to something older than both of us." Traoré said nothing. He only knelt, kissed the top of his son's head, and whispered, Then I will protect you until they remember. The next morning, the palace security perimeter doubled in radius. No explanation was given, but for those who still watched from afar, from embassies, from screens, from satellites, they understood. This was no longer a political problem. It was a spiritual one. And the world had no protocol for a child who sees the future and a president who believes him.